Hello, everyone. Welcome to this Buzzy webinar. My name is Stephanie, and it's a pleasure to be your host today. For those of you who are just discovering Buzzy for the first time today, let me give you a quick introduction. I want you to imagine that you're trying to climb a mountain. So your goal is to reach the top as quickly as possible. The mountain could be a small hill, really easy to reach, or it could be as high as Mount Everest. And I also never said that you were, a professional climber. You could have some climbing experience or, never climb a mountain in your life. How good would it be if something could help you get part of the way there and bring you closer to the top of your mountain? This is what Buzzy aspires to do. So Buzzy is a no-code app builder that leverages AI to help you get to a functional MVP in just minutes. So based on a prompt that you give it, Buzzy can create a full-stack application for web or native that includes the database, UI designs, and all the logic behind it. Then it's up to you to take it to the next level. We give you the opportunity to customize the look and feel, add more custom features, change the user flow, and much more. To talk to you in the session, we have two amazing Buzzy specialists. We first hear from Adam Ginsburg, CEO and founder of Buzzy. Say hi, Adam.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining. Stoked to be here with you all. Thanks.
Awesome. So Adam has prepared a super cool demo for you guys. He'll be showing you the revamped Buzzy Wizard and also a way that you can enhance any Buzzy app using the code widget. So yeah, welcome, Adam. Then in the second part of the session, we welcome Andrew Clark to the stage. Andrew is a full-stack developer platform. He's been building applications on Buzzy for a while now, and he is also offering Buzzy coaching for anyone who is looking to, up their skills in that area. Say hi, Andrew.
Hey, everyone.
Awesome. So we're very excited actually to have Andrew with us today, especially because it's in the middle of the night where he lives. And he will be showcasing some of the awesome work he did and also give some hot tips and advice for all the Buzzy beginners that are here today. So welcome, Andrew.
But really happy for you to be over here. We are really focused on, as Steph mentioned, with that, if your goal is to build an application, whether it's either web or native, and that is to get to the top of the mountain, we want to be able to accelerate you and get you as far up the mountain as possible. I've got two parts to my demonstration. The first half is I'm going to show you the new Buzzy AI Wizard. We just soft launched this last night. And the key thing is that you don't need Figma skills to get into that. We've learned a lot over the last few months. And our entry point was you had to have Figma skills to run the Buzzy plugin and run the AI component. Now you can get started with just going to the website and getting your first version of the app out. The second part of my presentation is going to be, if we go and customize that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build an application. And let's have a look at it here. So I thought for the demo, what I'll do is I'll create a stock app. By the way, there's a bunch of examples over here. Have a look at them because they teach you how to prompt Buzzy. And we've been focusing on improving the way that we put prompts in. So for this example, I'm going to create an app to track stock portfolios. Each stock has a name, a ticker code, current price, and price history. Allow the users to add stocks to their portfolio, and for each stock in the portfolio, include a buy price and the date and number of shares. So that's going to be the starting point. My email address in here. And then I'm going to click Build My App. So for those of you who've played with Buzzy before, you would know that you would have had to get into Figma. And as I mentioned, that's a huge barrier to entry. For the purposes of this, we can actually just go into the website and generate that. And I'm just going to click on that link, and we're going to get started. So that's as easy as it is. Give it a prompt, and the new Buzzy workspace is going to start generating this. This will take about 6 minutes. We really want to make it as easy as possible for you to get started. And depending on what you're building, Buzzy takes sort of 3 key inputs. There's obviously your prompt, how good that is. And don't worry if you get it wrong. Just keep playing with it and trying and seeing what it produces with the AI. But that's a really important input. The other key input is how good the AI is. And while there's been massive advancement in GPT and those type of technologies, it's not perfect. So you need to sort of, that is a limitation. And then the other question is, how good is Buzzy? So the combination of those three things are really the three key inputs for you to build your application. So you can see over here, it's actually going away and it's doing things like it creates a brief, and then it creates a data model, which is the underlying database for your application. It then is going to start generating the screen images and the design for that based on the predefined look and feel called the UI kit. Everything is customizable. The brief is customizable. The data model is customizable. You can pull that design into Figma. If you don't know, Figma is the leading UI UX tool out there to be able to modify high fidelity designs. So we give you ultimate control of the application without having to touch the code. Following on from that is you can then come in and you can write custom components. There are custom components at the front end, which we call code widgets or HTML widgets, and then you can write back-end components as well. For those, you have to be a developer. So the analogy that Steph used before in terms of climbing the mountain, if we get you 3/4 of the way there, you still might need some design skills and technical skills to get you all the way to the top. But the key thing is you didn't have to start at the bottom. We got you to that point, and you can focus on the really cool, important stuff for your application, which is going to have a significant reduction in the cost and time and the skills required to be able to create your application. And that's what we're all about, is how do we make that as easy as possible. In terms of where we're going, at the moment, when you get to that first version of the app, there's two doors. The first door is, okay, I've generated the first version. I want to customize it myself. I want to learn how to use Buzzy. And there's a series of steps. So there is a accreditation program. There's about an hour of lesson time for you to get accredited. It's not a huge amount of effort, but you do need to have Figma skills. As I mentioned, you might need to bring in some developers to help you close specific bits of functionality depending on the requirements of your app. The other door is, if you don't want to go along that path, is you can go and find a Buzzy expert. So we have a Buzzy marketplace. You can get to it at marketplace.buzzy.buzz. And you can put a brief in there, a project in there, and you can create a project and get help from an existing Buzzy expert. So cool, here we go. We've created the first version of the app. Let's look at this new stock app and let's see what was created. So we can have a look at this. We can look at various versions of the application over here in different resolution. So you can change it things like to mobile and tablet and desktop view. Obviously, this is the browser based. We give you the ability as well to create a native application. Under the covers, we use React Native. You don't have to code that. We've got that covered for you, and you can get native apps in the Android and iOS store. In terms of this application, it's a pretty simple one. Over here, we can see we've got the ability to look at stock. You can create a portfolio. We've got some navigation on that. And that was all created from that prompt, and we've created that application. Now we can go and we can have a look at, let's say we go into edit mode over here. We can have a look at this in the Buzzy workspace. So for those of you who have been using Buzzy for a while, this is a new Buzzy workspace. Over here, we can have a look at the brief. We can also run the wizard again. We can look at the underlying database that was created. And this is the database of the system. And again, we've got one stock item in here, which is Apple. We can see over here, and there's its ticker code and so on. We can also go to the design. And this is where you will need, if you don't already own a Buzzy license, to be able to take this into Figma, you will need to purchase a Buzzy license at this point in time. You can do other things in here, like you can add people to the application, and there's a bunch of settings where you can turn on things like privacy and those types of features. You can share an application that you've created with Buzzy AI with people and start getting user feedback. So if you're building an MVP, this is an incredible way for you to speed up that process of getting user feedback really early on in your process. So again, if we go to the stocks over here, we can see things like the navigation and that are all defined. We can come in and we can add new stocks. So I'm going to add a new stock over here. I'm going to add on Amazon, and it's the ticker code. I won't put a price in, I'll just hit submit. So this is a full working cloud application with its under the covers. It has, when you deploy this on your own Buzzy server, you have your own database cluster, you have your own compute power, can be sitting on your own URL and so on. So over here we can see that was the item that we just created. So I just wanted to show you how easy it is to be able to create an application. Again, this is pretty simple. So that's the first part of the demo. Again, you can go and define in your prompt and iterate on that and do all sorts of different things for the types of apps. So everything from like the navigation over here is defined, things like to enable things like the profiling and security login. There's some extra steps that you need to take, but they're pretty easy to be able to configure that. So for the second part of the demo, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the design tab over here, and I'm going to open the app up in Figma. So there's two steps over here. So the first thing is you need to start with one of our design kits, and this will open up the app in Figma. A design or UI kit in Figma are like building blocks that make applications. Now, this is completely customizable. If you don't like this look and feel and you don't like these components that it starts with, you can just come in here and you can edit these and change the look and feel, and it will ripple through your application. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the plugin. I'm going to open the Buzzy plugin in Figma, and I'm going to pull this design down into Figma. So the first thing over here, so let's just go back into wizard mode. I'm going to import an existing app. Over here, we can see we've got our portfolio tracker over here. So let's go continue. I'm going to import the app into this application. So this is going to give me what we just created in the previous part of the demo on the web. We're going to pull this in as a design into this Figma file, and then we can change whatever we want. We can change the look and feel. We can add fields, add screens, anything in terms of making that match the type of application that you're looking to build. And in terms of the roadmap, we're going to be adding, so at the moment the UI kit is very focused on mobile, but it runs on web as well. It is fully responsive, but we're going to be adding some additional views in there very shortly to make it for a lot of desktop applications. We can see we've got our brief in here, and we've got our data model. So for the next part of the demo, what I want to do is I want to write some custom code that goes and fetches the live stock data for that particular stock. So this is something that the AI cannot do and hopefully will be able to do in the future, but it can't do it now, and we need a bit of customization. I'm going to show you how we can do that. So I'm going to go into the data table. Think of this as the database. I'm going to go to stock. I'm going to add a new field over here called stock graph, and I'm going to give it a type of HTML field, and I'm going to save that. What I'm going to do for this particular example is I'm going to go to the stock screen over here, and I'm going to go to, let's go to this one over here. So this over here is where the price history field is. I don't know if you remember from the data model over here, this is actually a rich text field, but we're not going to show that field. I'm going to hide it in a second, but I'm just going to, hold a sec, did I go in there? I'm just going to duplicate that. I'm going to go into this field over here, and I'm going to give it a new name, and I'm going to call it stock graph. We're going to give it a new name over there. For the input over here, we're going to come into the design, and instead of associating it with that price history rich text field, we're going to associate it with another field in the database, which is an HTML field. And then I'm just going to go through here, and I'm going to publish that application. So you know what I'm going to do as well over here? I'm going to go to this price history field. I'm just going to hide that. And then I'm going to just update the current screen. That makes it, by the way, if you just update the current screen and that, it'll just be a lot faster. So as you're making through changes and you iterate things, it just makes that process much faster. So it's that easy to make changes in the UI. And again, I could change other things in this UI, and just instantly we'll see that available. So I'm just going to manage in the Buzzy workspace here. I could have probably gone to the other window, but we'll just open up another one. And let's have a look at the data design. So at the moment, we've got this stock graph, but we haven't put any code in to render a chart. So let's have a look in here. So we can go to the HTML field. Now you can do this in the plugin, but I would, and we're going to change this to a sandbox iframe so we can add some code in. We're going to disable the headers. We're going to enable this new async API, so it's very performant. And we're going to do this. Now, if you do it in the plugin, you don't get this full screen. So for editing code, I prefer to do this in the browser. And I'm just going to go and copy a prompt that I created. I'm going to paste it in here. So I'm going to click generate, and as we generate this, so we have a way that you can generate custom code. Now you need to be a developer for this. So this is the bit that we did before. You don't have to be a developer for. For this bit, you need to be a developer for. It just so happens that it's actually pretty good at creating the first version of the code, and you may or may not need to edit it. But if you do, you need to change it or customize it. That's where you want to have those developer skills. So in this example, we're going to use the following API to fetch the stock prices for the last 12 months. We're going to save it into the price history field as a JSON object. We're then going to use this API, and this could be any external third-party API. And then we said, render the chart showing the data price history field in a line chart and only show the history for the last 12 months. Now we can see this has magically generated a whole bunch of React.js custom code, and it's pulling the data out. It understands how to use the Buzzy API and render that information. It can do things like update. You can create not just display fields, but you could create, full data, CRUD fields. We create, read, update content, and so on. So let's have a look over here. And let's see how that code is running or not running. Again, this is me living on the edge, and doing a live demo. And let's have a look at that. And there we go. There is a bunch of custom code that you would have spent a ton of time developing. It's custom code that's sitting in the framework that we created with Buzzy AI. This is absolutely amazing. Now, if I was to go in and let's say put in another, I'll just go into the stock section here and do what we did before. We can go and add a new stock in here. And let's say we want to add in Microsoft, and then we're going to give it the stock code. We could obviously put custom code in here to do things like lookups and all that stuff, and we're going to hit submit. Let's have a look at that. That's a new item that's in here, and let's have a look at that. And let's have a look at the, and there it is. There's the Microsoft code. And that's actually fetching real-time data off that stock API. So you think about what you could build, what we just did probably in about 10, 15 minutes, traditionally would have taken developers, and you can go and give this URL to somebody. If you've got the native app in the app stores, you can give this to them. You can start getting user feedback. If you're building an MVP or a corporate application, you can really start getting that user feedback and move it along the road to getting it production ready. So the two bits are, just to summarize, we built the framework with AI, which is this application. It's, like I said, it's a full responsive app over here. It's got everything from the navigation. We didn't have to code any of that shell. And then we went and we used our development skills with an AI Copilot to be able to go and add that stock chart in that, we just went and, could go and fetch that data for an external URL. I mean, this is like the future of development.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Clark, and I'm a lead developer at formm.global and a Buzzy coach. We had a really good session 1. This is session 2. Just a heads up. It's gone past 2 a.m. in the morning for me. So if I come across like I sound a little tired and lethargic, please forgive me. But I have been looking forward to talking about one of the key development tools I use on a daily basis, Buzzy. It really is my absolute pleasure to be here, and I would like to thank Adam and Stephanie for the invitation to present at this webinar. Now, if I may offer up a teaser, you'll be glad to know that the secret sauce is still human, and there is still plenty of room for human innovation in AI-enhanced workflow. More on that later. I am originally from the Northern Beaches in Sydney, where in 1996 I founded my first company with my brother Chris. Since then, I've amassed a little over 25 years of experience working with, on, and in just about all things digital. Currently, as I mentioned, I reside in Louisiana in the United States. This is a picture looking out from my backyard. I enjoy the rural environment, and for the most part, the locals here are chill. The path that led me to Louisiana began in 2012 when I accepted an offer from my brother Chris to head up business development for a tech startup called FewSport. FewSport, a grassroots to enterprise level events registration and organizational management platform, was targeted at the then $1 billion annual sports participation market. The plan was simple: to break into the US market. We were successful in securing some keystone customers. This allowed us to pull the trigger on setting up US-based operations out of Colorado Springs, Colorado, where by the end of 2013, we had secured a first round of funding. So how did I get to Louisiana? My future wife, Angela, was from Louisiana, and I left FewSport and moved here in 2015. This is a picture of Sydney, my 8-year-old collie cattle dog cross. For anyone who gets to know me, you'll learn that I love bragging about my dog. Sydney's what they call a Texas healer around here. And when I'm not on the tools developing apps or assisting people with some Buzzy coaching, she makes sure that I get plenty of activity. I'm hoping you're not hearing her scratching or whimpering at the door to my studio as I give this presentation, but I think she's wondering what the heck her father is doing at 2:30 a.m. in the morning and why she can't be involved in it. Now, as interesting as my life story is, I think I'll skip forward about a decade and we'll get back to the here and now. So currently I'm working with my brother again, Chris, for a company he co-founded called formm.global. As I mentioned at the outset, I am a lead developer at Formm and a Buzzy coach. Formm helps shape the digital future of startup to mid-sized businesses with a core service offering in building new ventures, digital transformation, and e-commerce. Our engagement is on a modular, time and materials, team-based approach. Depending on the customer, we assemble an internal squad to deliver on requirements, whether it's a one-stop shop or to provide specific expertise where needed. This includes everything from strategy and architecture, design and experience, to product engineering, business readiness, and delivery. Formm has a playbook. It encompasses all the key steps from getting your idea or product from zero to hero. To find out more, please visit formm.global. The reason I am presenting here today is because Formm has experience in leveraging Buzzy on large-scale projects. Here is an example with 152 screens, where we were able to achieve 75% of the project scope requirements with Buzzy inbuilt functionality, the remainder needing some custom development work. Buzzy has a lot of things I like about it. For example, hosting and related architecture, including data management, is handed to you on a scalable silver platter. Buzzy allows for faster development cycles. You can update your web app and native app and Google deployments straight from your design file in Figma using the Figma Buzzy plugin. Amazing. The update app button is the best thing since sliced bread. Iterating design, data structure, and distributed deployment at the press of a button, huge productivity gain versus non-Buzzy alternatives. And now with the Buzzy AI Assistant, the speed at which you can hit the ground running and iterate on projects is almost mind-bending. I want to share with you all a case study. As an example project using the AI Assistant, specifically we will look at ways of enhancing the UX of a Buzzy AI-generated app using Buzzy markup. Now, to set the scene and to get in a shameless plug first, I want to tell you all about a recent new Formm service offering arising out of our partnership with Buzzy. This new service offering is Formm on-demand Buzzy coaching. Whether you are do-it-yourselfing with a minimal budget or managing a large-scale project or team, our experts adapt and tailor sessions to your specific needs. Coaching to your project and skill level on demand by the hour allows you to get the help when and where you need it. Get your app's development started off in the right way and overcome obstacles when they arise. Schedule a convenient Buzzy coaching session by visiting formm.global. No matter your needs or tech background, Formm's experts coach you to customize and leverage Buzzy tools. Now it's time for the case study, enhancing AI-generated UX. This is going to touch upon using Buzzy markup via the Buzzy Figma plugin to create permission-based display using component views where creator is equal to the current user. We're also going to be taking advantage of the visibility conditions in component layouts, as well as using some action update field goodness. All right, I might also just go control / here, and that's my first tip. If you want to get rid of the Figma interface, control /, that's command / if you're using an Apple. So here are our screens. These are very similar to the screens that you just saw Adam generate, except in this case, it's for our example app. There's a brief, which I won't go through now because it's beyond, I suppose, the stage you're at and what I want to demonstrate. There is a data model, so tables with fields, and here is our design. Now, to step back one step and give an overview of what this example is about, because it'll make a lot more sense if I do that first. Why not make our teaching example an app called Buzzy Coach? Got a nice catchy title for it, fast track to MVP as well. And the concept here is to be able to demonstrate certain features that you can do in Buzzy in an environment that maybe one day we can deploy and use for our actual Buzzy coaching. So I mentioned the form playbook. In this particular example, we're going to be sort of entering at stage 2, the develop and test MVP stage, which, to be honest, is probably the one of the funnest stages and typically what everybody wants to rush to and start at. I will just say, though, that there's a lot that goes into building an app and a lot of groundwork that really should be done first, and that's encompassed by the playbook that we have by form. So we're just going to go ahead and assume we've done all that hard work and we've got our future vision, our focus, we've done all the necessary steps. And we're at the stage, we've got a prototype idea, we've done a bit of research, we've selected Buzzy because we want to take advantage of the massive cost savings and power of the tools that Buzzy provides. We've iterated a few times with the AI assistant to develop some screens. And so the stage we're at now is refining our MVP screens prior to launching an MVP 1 and then going back through the iteration process. I wanted to touch quickly upon some of the functionality for this particular example. So we've got different user roles that we want to have for our example Buzzy coaching app. Those 4 roles are Buzzian, which essentially is a student. That's what we like to call Buzzians. We give them a heart because we love people who use Buzzy. Coaches, so Form Buzzy experts. Admins, so those are members of our Form team who are administrators, and super admins. Those are our 4 user groups that we want to use in this example. Now, some of the key functionality or hero functionality that we want to demonstrate here is we want students or Buzzians to be able to rate their own skills in Buzzy and Figma, and for coaches to be able to rate the students' skills. Now, I won't go into the detail as to why, because that's probably not necessarily important to this example. But when you're looking at, when I get into this example, you should be thinking in terms of how you can use some of these features in terms of your own functionality for your own app. Now, of course, we want to also have some user management, all the usual standard stuff. We want students, Buzzians, to be able to manage their own profile, coaches to be able to manage the students, admins to be able to manage the students and the coaches, and super admins to manage everybody. The way we're going to achieve that is by using role-based navigation menus. So what I might do is drag over some Chrome sessions. And this is my tip number 2, especially for people who are new to any type of development. You want to have multiple Chrome sessions open because it really helps to be able to see what your users are going to see when they log into your app. So this particular app here, I've published it. And actually, I might give you another tip. There's no need when the app's in the way on your screen like this, the plugin, to close the plugin and then have to worry about going and opening it up again. You can just minimize it. This is actually a fairly new feature in the last few months to be able to minimize like this. And while it might only take a few seconds to go and open it again, you do that 20 or 30 times a day, you're wasting your time. So don't forget you can minimize the plugin and just put it somewhere out of the way. Now, if I go and find that screen that I just lost, there we go, and drag across some more. So that first screen is me. This next screen is me pretending to be Belinda here. And then this next screen is me pretending to be this test user. So development, you can get a little bit of multiple personality sort of going. Hopefully everyone can follow what I'm talking about here with the 3 screens. There's 3 separate users and 3 separate Chrome sessions. You can tell which is which by the color of the session. Now, if I go in to each of them and open up the menu, because you were just talking about role-based menus, you'll notice here that the menus are a little different for each of these users. Now, I can go in and change with my left-hand user here, me, if I go into the user list and we pull up this middle user, Belinda. Here, we can edit Belinda's permissions. So if we switch her off of being a super admin, she no longer sees the super admin menu, therefore doesn't get access to those functionalities. The same is true here for our test user who, based upon this morning's demonstration, I think we turned into an admin and a super admin. So I might go and just edit that particular user and turn them back into just a student. So we do that simply by switching off their roles. So now they're a student. They just see the student menu. They don't get the additional menus. Really straightforward in terms of how that displays. But how would you go about setting that up with Buzzy markup? So that's what we want to take a quick look at now. So if I shoot on back to the Figma file, and we'll open up our plugin and we'll go into the particular screen that has our menu. That's this screen here. You can see that we've got the four menus. So there's 3 here with the colored bars, plus the 4th one, which is up here for just the students. Each one of these is wrapped in various nested layers of Buzzy markup. And I thought best to demonstrate this to actually bring up a teaching example here that I can zoom in and make it a little bit easier perhaps to see what's going on. From the left-hand side, this is in Figma, a screenshot of the Figma layers. So here is the menu screen. That's the little hash there, means this is a frame, it's a screen, and that relates to this outside container. So that's the stuff that basically is above what we're really interested in talking about. What we're interested in talking about here is this middle container and then the smaller container that's inside of it. These are nested. So this first one here, which is the coach menu, is using some layout, some Buzzy markup, and here's a screenshot of the plugin. So it's of type component view, and it's looking at the user table. And it's a results view where we're really only looking for one result here. So that's why it's a page size of 1 with a limit of 1. And we're filtering, and I'll zoom in a little bit more down here. We're filtering this view based upon the creator being the current user, and is coach equal to true. This creator equal to current user is a way of determining who is currently logged in. And then we're checking that row in the user table to see if is coach is true. Now, is coach is a field that was added in. Here's the data model for the user table. It's got all the sort of usual suspects you'd expect in a user table: first name, last name, email, profile image, etc. Obviously, your app would have different fields here. But the ones that are interesting for this example is the is admin, is coach, is super admin, is Buzzian. You notice these are also key fields. They do need to be set to key fields. That allows you to actually filter upon something that's a key field. So is coach is what we're looking for in this particular example. If this outside component view that we're looking at returns a row, we then have this inner row that is doing a component layout visibility check. So it's evaluating a condition. And that condition we've got here is Boolean user underscore author. User underscore author is just a field that is in our table. We could have chosen a bunch of these. It could have been first name, last name, email. Is admin, is coach. Boolean fields wouldn't be a good choice for this particular usage. All we're looking to do is say, did we actually get anything returned? If there is a value for this field, then this layer here will show. The reason we've got the double layering here is it stops this layer flashing in when the screen loads in. So we're explicitly saying only show this menu if this user is actually a coach. Pretty much the same methodology that we're using then for the other menus that you see there, for the super admin menu, for the student menu, and for the admin menu. It's a reasonably straightforward, but a great and powerful way of controlling your various user roles in your app and what they get to see by basically only allowing them to navigate to certain parts of the app. Now, the next thing I wanted to show is more akin to extending the AI when it comes to UX. So if we go back into our Figma, the AI is very good at creating forms for, as Adam mentioned, create, read, update, delete functions or CRUD functions. But, you know, they look like forms. They're pretty sort of standard stuff. Drop-down boxes look like drop-down boxes. Checkboxes look like checkboxes. So on the app, if I bring up, say, this example here on this particular user and go into their profile in edit view, you'll see down the bottom here that we've got, you know, some drop-down boxes. So these are perfectly functional and might be fine for your use case. If you wanted to extend the UX and really make it a more interesting experience, you can start to use Buzzy markup to build your own inputs. So what we have here is the student and their ability to rate themselves with their skills with Buzzy. So I can do that by just simply clicking on these numbers next to Buzzy in the Figma logo to indicate that this user believes that they are at a skill level of 1 with Buzzy and a skill level of 2 with Figma. Now, if I bring up the coach view of that same student, so this is Belinda here, and if we go into the menu and bring up this AJ test user over here. Because she's a coach, she then has the ability to rate the user. So likewise, she might think that the user here, with their assessment of 1 on Buzzy, is a little low. She might think the user is doing a little bit better than that and rate them as a 2. And conversely might agree that their Figma skills are at a 2. This is much more usable and quicker to use perhaps than checkboxes, but you could achieve the same things with checkboxes here. So for instance, if Belinda, if I make her a admin, she can now turn the test user here, if she wants, into a coach. You could also do that by just using these checkboxes, perfectly functional, just doesn't look as good. And I want you to think of this example here in the top. You might have this on your mobile phone laid out in a carousel with a right to left swipe. And rather than, student ratings and role permissions, these could be icons that indicate a user's particular preferences or likes or skills or certifications or whatever. And they could just, swipe left, swipe right, tap on the ones that apply to them, keep on swiping. A little bit more usable, I think you'd all agree, than necessarily a whole bunch of forms to fill out. More fun as well. So how does this work? So here's our form that's in our Figma file that was created by the AI. And when we're viewing those forms in the web, these are the sorts of controls that we get, but we want to turn those into something a little bit more fun. So how do we do that? So again, Control / just to get rid of my Figma interface here a little bit so we can see a little bit more what's going on. If we're looking at just the Buzzy rating row here, I've sort of exploded, if you like, what's going on in the 3 option. So 0, 1, 2, 4, and 5 are all the same as 3, except 3 here I've just exploded so we can see what's going on. And I've taken some screenshots of the Buzzy plugin with what the Buzzy markup is. So the first thing to point out is each one of these numbers has a 1% transparent floating circle above them. Now you can't see them here because it's set to 1% transparency. The one that you can see, I've got set to 100% so we can see it. It's actually on that layer what I'm setting a bit of Buzzy markup on, and that Buzzy markup is of type action, update field, and I'm telling it to target a particular field in our data structure in the user table. And here is the really heavy-duty algorithm that I'm putting in there, 3. So fairly straightforward, I'm sure you can imagine. So if you click on this, it's setting the value of SBuzzy, which is the name we've given to the field for the student rating of their Buzzy skills, to 3. The same is true for the 2, the 1, the 0, the 4, and the 5. It's got this hidden button floating above each of them. Now, the next step, in order to make this actually work, is we need to be able to dynamically show and hide these graphics that have the number in it with the blue circle. And we do that by putting markup on that particular layer, component layout, visibility, and we're only showing when this condition is true. So here, this is JSONata. Here, I'm just being very explicit in converting the field value to a string, and I'm saying if you equal 3, then show. And that happens for each one of these items. So as we go through in the web app and we click on it, it's essentially 5 separate items evaluating whether or not they're true, and either hiding or showing based upon what the actual value is we've selected. Simply clicking on the 3, that's showing 3, and the 2's hiding, the 1's hiding, the 0's hiding, the 4's hiding, the 5's hiding because it's not being selected. All updates in real time. This happens in the web app. Obviously, this would be the same case if it was in native in the Google or App Store native deployment. The other interesting little bit of functionality here, right? So if we recall, Belinda here is in the middle. She's a coach. Now, if Belinda wasn't a coach, you notice how she can't rate AJ on the right-hand side anymore. She has no access to the ratings anymore because she's not a coach. Switch coach on, she can. This is very similar in terms of approach to the menus in showing and hiding menus depending on user role. There's a slight difference, however. So here again, we've got an abstracted view of what we're doing. We've got a parent screen. And inside of that parent screen, we've got a component view looking at the user table. And similar to before, we're filtering on creator equal to current user and is coach. But this time, we're evaluating and checking if it's false. And the actual area that we're checking that on, it's essentially a blank layer. If this comes back where coach is false, it doesn't actually show anything. This is the results view. Here is the Figma Buzzy plugin screenshot of what that looks like. Component view, source data table user. It's the results layout, page size of 1, because we're only expecting one result here. It's not a menu or a list of things that we're looking for. It's just one item. And down here is our filtering criteria, creator equal to the current user, and is coach not equal to true. Now, there is something called a no results view. Now, the no results view is essentially the counterpart to the results view. It's what happens if my view doesn't have any results. You can specify a no results view. So here, component view, and this has the same name, the same component name as our results layout up here. Difference being this is set to being a no results layout. That's the view mode. And so what the no results then shows is our coach widget, where they can choose what skill level for Buzzy and Figma. And that's done by basically using a little bit of reverse logic. The other reason for doing this way, and let me just open up, you'll notice top right of the screen here where my mouse is circling, this picture of Belinda. So at the screen level here, we've got Belinda, and then we've got a form that's sitting here for the actual user, and that's pulling out AJ's specific details. If we were trying to check in line whether or not Belinda here was a coach or not, we'd be getting confused with whether AJ is a coach in terms of the nesting. So by using a no result view, and if we look at that in the actual Figma file as opposed to this wireframe, it might start to really make a little bit more sense. In here, there's a blank results component view that if it evaluates that you aren't a coach, it'll just show nothing. But if you are a coach, it then comes down here to the coaching no result view. And down here, when we're pulling out the views, whether or not Belinda is a coach or not, it doesn't conflict then with AJ's status of being a coach or not up in this area. So it's a nuance, a nice little trick to use the no results in order to display what you want. Now, lastly, just before finishing up, the piece de resistance here is these buttons that I'm moving my mouse on in the middle here. So you'll notice that, again, Belinda is set to being just a coach. She can edit AJ's Figma skills and Buzzy skills, but she can't actually change AJ's roles. If I was to make her a super admin, she can now make AJ a super admin or an admin. If I was to make her an admin, she can now choose whether or not AJ is a student, a Buzzian, or even a coach. Now, obviously for your app, you'd have different requirements here in terms of what users can do. But what I'm basically getting at here is you can build that in using just standard Buzzy markup to meet those requirements. And you can do it in a way which is very fast, i.e. what the AI gives you with the standard form components and the sort of form views and checkboxes and drop-down boxes. Or you can extend it a little bit and do it in this sort of way, which provides, in my opinion, and I think objectively, a slightly better UX experience for the person using the app.
The short answer to that is yes. The slightly longer answer to that is, and I think that's part of, like, for example, what Andrew showed before in terms of where the Buzzy coaching comes in. What we found though is for the next short period, we're changing so fast. A number of people have come to us and said, hey, can we put a Udemy course together for you guys? And I said, well, sure, but do you understand that it's going to change next month and the month after? So I think we probably, because we're iterating so quickly and adding new features and we're going at the speed of AI, I think I'd probably expect that's going to take a bit of time to get to that Buzzy Academy. But Steph, maybe if you want to talk about the Buzzy accreditation process that we've got at the moment.
Yeah, so Buzzy accreditation is 6 lessons that take you through the basics of Buzzy. We get some videos and some exemplifies. So this is especially for people who want to develop the skills in Buzzy and also potentially offer the services to other Buzzy customers or people who need help with the Buzzy project. So it's totally free to join and to complete. You receive a certificate at the end. And I guess this is, as Adam said, we haven't got a fully fleshed out program yet, but I guess this is the starting point of it. So, but I really like the idea, and hopefully in the future we will have something like the Buzzy Academy. So yeah.
The short answer, yes. So what I created over there at the moment for that stock app was a browser-based application. It's responsive. One of the things that we've got coming very soon is one of the inputs is the Buzzy UI kits. And again, you get full customization of that. You can make them, even though they looked kind of similar today, like the apps, it's because we based them on those UI kits, but you can make that look in your corporate look and feel. In terms of the customization of the UI with using AI to do that, that's going to be our first cab off the rank for you to be able to customize that. So the short answer is yes, you can have a web app, and then you can decide, to publish that or a subsection of that or a different set of screens that use the same data, as an app, native app to the App Store. It doesn't have to be an app straight up. Yeah, so we have the ability to make a REST API call out of Buzzy. That could be to a specific API endpoint of like Stripe or any other third-party system, but you can also develop your own code, and that could be running as something like a DigitalOcean function or AWS Lambda function or wherever it is as a REST API endpoint. You can then call back in through the Buzzy REST API and make changes to the Buzzy data. So that's a pretty common pattern for extension. So the two main patterns that we see for extension are the HTML.js widget, which is client-side, and then server-side, that pattern of writing custom code on a server somewhere or calling an API. For Stripe specifically, we actually had a payment button with Stripe, but what we found is that with Stripe's advancement in their payment portal, it's very easy just to provide a link out to their payment portal, and then it provides a webhook back into either a third-party source or back into Buzzy. We use that in our payment process. So that type of pattern for integration with Stripe is open standards, fairly easy to do. Yes, so you can, so each deployment of the web application or server running under the covers, which is used by both the native app and obviously for web, runs in its single tenant. So that means you get your own database cluster, your own compute, and you can set your own domain for that. So you run that. It's hosted by Buzzy, super easy, cost effective. So we're replacing that entire stack of what you would have had to go and develop. We sit on top of Kubernetes, so you can scale it horizontally, vertically. You can break things into microservices to do little bits and pieces. So it's a extremely enterprise-grade, scalable architecture sitting under the covers that you can start to configure based on your requirements. Yeah, so that's a really good question. We speak to a lot of people and a lot of analysts in that. From what the feedback that we've had is that we've seen that they've all said the same thing. They've seen people doing parts of the flow, but the ability to start from a prompt and get a working app that is running in an enterprise-grade, server architecture, and that we haven't really seen anybody else doing that. I'm sure there might be technology out there, but that's really our key differentiator. Other differentiators that we do both web and native. So you've got technology out there, let's say like Bubble, that do web only. We do web and native. So we're actually using a true native application. We're sending the app definition to that React Native app. It has its own database. It can work offline, all that sort of cool stuff. We've even got customers using like Bluetooth integration for all sorts of cool stuff. So that's what we think is our key differentiator. So idea to actual working app, as you saw in a few minutes. Go and give it a try. Keen to get more feedback.
That update app button, the blue button in the plugin, that's why it's so cool. So someone who used to do things the old school way, you'd be spending hours and a lot of just headache messing around with different code bases to be updating to the app stores plus web app. That's all just that one button. It's like the Jetsons. You hit the update app button and it publishes whatever you've changed in your Figma file, not only to web app, but to what's in the Apple Store and what's in the Google Store. It's awesome sauce. That is an excellent question. And as it turns out, yes, Buzzy Coach. And so if you go to formm.global, I've managed to, from our company point of view, get the ability for people to book a coaching session right on our homepage. Not sure how long I can keep that up. We've got a lot of competing things going on for that homepage, but at the moment, if you go to formm.global, you'll be able to see the blue book a coaching session button. The advantage of that coaching is that we look to tailor it and customize it specifically to your needs. So whether that's you're an expert Figma user and you're just looking at getting up to speed with Buzzy, or you've got an idea for an app and you don't know where to start, we can plug ourselves in anywhere in your process and look to assist you. And that's just on demand when and as you need it.
It's the same pattern that we talked about before with integration with external services like Stripe. So there's a concept of a Buzzy rule, and a Buzzy rule can do a lot of things. It can do things like send a notification or do an update or and stuff like that. But it can also make a call out to an external service. So that blockchain or third-party system, as long as it's got a published API that you can call like in a RESTful way, then the integration is going to be fairly simple. So you've got the Buzzy application that's going to call that external app. And we've got a bunch of, if you look at the Buzzy docs, there's a number of examples over there of integrating with external services, not blockchain specifically, but I expect that if you've got an API for that blockchain, then you'll just integrate it in that same way that you would any front-end technology. Yeah, the short answer is yes. So if you look at sort of where Buzzy technology, and we've been around for several years, so we built the core no-code platform. About 2 years ago, we put the Figma wrap around it, which really manifests itself in a Figma plugin. So you can go into an existing Figma file and start marking up the application. So you can just find here, here's a screen, and here's a form, here's a list of items or review, here's each field and so on. Depending on the complexity of that app and how well you've designed it, will determine how easily it translates. I will say that you do need to use Figma best practices for that file. So you need to be using things like auto layout to make sure it's responsive and so on. So, our initial customers, Buzzy AI didn't exist 6 months ago. And, all the customers prior to that would have just used the standard Figma file and built it from scratch. What I would recommend, though, is that looking at the option to use Buzzy AI to generate the first version for you, and then using that as a building block, to then build and customize your app, as Andrew showed in that. That's probably going to be very, very fast and time efficient. And again, it depends on the complexity of the app. If you've got an app of, Andrew, I can think of one which had about 180 screens that was just done in standard Figma. There was probably some initial work to be done to convert that to make it best practice and Buzzy friendly. Definitely, you can start with existing Figma files, but just go in and play with Buzzy AI and see if you can just leapfrog it and start from just tweaking that versus tweaking your large file. Just be harsh and make sure which one's the fastest path.
Figma.com/@Buzzy, awesome resource, has a whole bunch of templates that Buzzy's provided, and so things like CRM apps, image demo fields, you can find stuff in there that you like that works, and you literally just copy and paste it out of that file into your project.
Look, the short answer to that is, think about that climbing the mountain analogy. Like, let's say, for argument's sake, we've got you 3/4 of the way up there, up the mountain. The way you change that is you go to the Figma file and you make a change to the Figma file, or you go into the Buzzy application in the workspace and you make a change there and it generates that code. Any custom code that you build on top of that will be done in whatever language makes sense. Obviously, for the web, it's going to be HTML and React.js. You can just do it in standard HTML and JS. It doesn't have to be React, but we recommend that API for an extension to it. We do not give you that underlying code. And that's a key point that we've thought about. My background was I was a product manager. I was the founder of a company that got acquired by IBM. I was a product manager in their app development, and we did no code, low code, decode stuff. And when we use code generation and you give a developer 10,000 lines of code, they're going, yeah, thanks, mate. What am I going to do with that? And then they find a bug in it and they give it back to us and we give you another 10,000 lines of code. It's just not sustainable. So for the bulk of the mountain, and that we maintain and enhance that code. You use it on the Buzzy runtime. So you need developers who are going to come in and help you get to the top of the mountain and not waste their time and effort down the bottom. If they want to do that, then probably Buzzy isn't the tool for you. And you want to find developers that are smart and can use that as a starting point and take you to the top and spend time doing the really cool stuff. So there's that adage that's going around that says, AI is not going to take your job as a designer or a developer, but people who use AI will. So I think that's the way to think about it. So, for those developers, just to say, okay, right, yeah, don't worry about all that stuff at the bottom of the mountain. You focus on these bits over here and spend that time doing that, as opposed to rewriting the 100 screens that were developed. That's just a waste of time and money. So,
if I might also chime in on that one, I'd suggest that the developer you're handing off to shouldn't be making decisions in their own best interest, what they're comfortable with. They should be making a decision based upon business outcomes for you and your app. And I think, as you've seen from the demonstrations, Buzzy literally does save you weeks of development time. That is thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Especially if you're aiming for something like an MVP, you have rocks in your head not to use Buzzy.
Yes, yeah. So it is alpha. I'd say it's early days. What I showed you in demo today for the code widget, you can go and use in the Buzzy workspace or through the plugin today. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, open the code widget in a browser. Okay, again, I recommend doing it in a browser because you get more screen real estate as opposed to trying to do it in the plugin. It'll kind of drive you nuts trying to do it in a little widget. And then at the top, you'll see that you can put a prompt in. What's really cool is you can tell it when the code comes out and it's broken, just tell it to fix it, and it will just reiterate on that code. Like, I've used that a bunch of times. Like, I said, hey, you know what, that's not right, or do this or whatever, and it will just keep on improving that code. Obviously, just be aware that if you write something in there, it will overwrite that code. So it should, just have a play around with it, and again, we'll keep enhancing that. Look, we can combine with any. You can integrate. We're agnostic in terms of the technology you can integrate with. So it depends on what you mean by combine. But you could stick Buzzy in an iframe, you could stick Bubble in an iframe, you could use an API to integrate between the two. The two could just sit side by side. So it just depends on what your requirements are. But that could be any. It doesn't have to be Bubble. It could be Webflow. It could be anything that you've developed. There's always a way to integrate it. So it depends on the requirements. So there's currently two parts of our costing. The pricing at the moment, again, this is a new product, so we are trialing different options out there. We've had a number of special offers running. If you go into the Buzzy workspace and then go to edit, if you don't already have a license, you can purchase that. But effectively, for each app that you deploy, there is either it's based on either a medium license or a large. The medium license is $100 a month, and that gives you your own clustered server, your own database cluster, your compute, and that. So you're effectively paying for the compute. And then we have a large, which is $500 a month, and that gets you a lot. Really, the difference between that is just the infrastructure. So if you needed a large that's got a really large database cluster, it's got a lot of compute that you can load balance things. For larger site, you can break things into microservices, or test environments, and that. So that's really the core offering for just using the Buzzy AI stuff. Yesterday, we used to charge for it as a starting point. If you go to the buzzy.buzz website today, there is no charge for getting that first iteration of the app. So this is a new experiment for us. You're the first people to hear about it. I did look. We launched it, literally put the website up last night, and I think just from people coming to it, I think there might have been 10 or so customers that have already used it just overnight without any advertisements or anything like that. So go and have a play with that. And again, think of it as that the reason we do it per deployment for each customer is each app's requirements are different. So app 1 versus app 2 or whatever it is, you want different infrastructure and the ability to scale those independently. And that's the base of our pricing. So medium license, $100 a month, large, $500.
That's, again, one of the things I really like about Buzzy is that you can start off with a free account and start on your way to building your MVP. You can then upgrade to a medium deployment to meet whatever those needs are. And then if you're successful with your app, you've got a lot of people using it and it's doing a lot of things, there's that scalability there where you can go to a large deployment and even beyond to full enterprise. And you're not having to, export code, change systems, change providers. It's just flicking a switch and you instantly get that extra capacity.
And the team behind Buzzy is the same team that, the core team of the technology we sold to IBM that ran some of the largest websites in the world. So everything from that technology was used as part of things like, Olympics or PGA or Wimbledon, and, lots of large corporate enterprises, banks, airlines, and so on. So we've been at this for a long, long time, and we've built the architecture accordingly. You're going to start from scratch and build things in Buzzy. So I don't think we're going to update an existing app. Obviously that could be built in whatever technology. That's not something that we do. But we feel that it's so fast and quick for you to get to that, to build it. It's just, give it a go in Buzzy. Can you revert to previous versions? There's multiple components of here that are to do with versioning, but ultimately one of the core elements is the Figma file. And the Figma file kind of becomes like your code. So your code is effectively the Figma file. Out of the box, Figma has things like versioning and the ability to roll back, and I kind of call that the poor man's versioning. If you go to one of the Figma enterprise options, I can't remember the exact name of it, they've got Git-like branching and that, where you can manage different versions of the application and so on. Now you can also set up, as I mentioned before, you can set up different environments for different parts. You might have a dev, staging. You can also set up in one server, you can set up different apps. So there's a multiple configuration options there to help you with that version management. And again, that's probably something that we'll look to improve over. So the short answer is yes. If you looked at Andrew's example, he was using a lot of sort of local variables to do some of that cool stuff. And they are all stored in the database. We also give you the ability to write custom code in those HTML widgets client side, and you can also call server side. So if you look at Buzzy Docs, there's a bunch of examples of where you can use Buzzy rules to make REST API calls to external APIs, and then they can call in through the Buzzy API. So that's a pretty common pattern for us for production apps. And again, just reach out if you need more information. There's a bunch of good samples on there. If you look at our YouTube demos and documentation, there's some good information to get started with. The short answer is that we support those same type of relationships. So we have one-to-many, which is like your parent-child relationship. So typically something like an invoice has the children are invoice lines, and so on. You can build multiple of those in a hierarchy. You can also have many-to-many relationships. So you can have many-to-many items, relationships in there with a join table and everything. There's a video out there. I can't remember exactly what the title is, but it's on our YouTube channel. Steph will post the link over there. But it talks about some of the setting up those data relationships and so on. I think if anybody understands standard entity relationship diagrams or defining a relational database, you're going to be able to carry those skills straight into our data modeling stuff. The cool thing is the AI actually gets you a pretty good part of the way there. It's not always perfect. We actually just finished training last night of a new version that's going to be dramatically improved. I'd say we probably will have that in production by the end of the week, early next week, if all goes well. But that does, if you give it a prompt and you describe the relationship in your prompt, it does a pretty good job, actually amazing job of defining those relationships. But you can go into the plugin and then change those data relationships. So the one-to-many are called subtables. So you have a table and a subtable, and then the many-to-manys are called linked table fields. So you can create a many-to-many relationship between entities. So think of those in traditional terms as foreign keys between data entities. I'm not sure what Figma professional licensing level, but we work from everything from the free version of Figma all the way through to the enterprise. So I don't think there's any restriction. I'm not familiar exactly with that, but yeah, again, just reach out to support at Buzzy Buzz if you've got any specific questions. So there's two coding areas. So the one is the client side, which is the HTML component. So any HTML in there, we've developed a React.js component, but it's just standard HTML and JavaScript. So if you can include Python at that client side, that will work. On the server side, you can use whatever language you want. So it could be Python or Node.js or PHP or Microsoft.NET or whatever, provided the interface is just a standard REST API. So we're just going to call from Buzzy to your REST API. You do whatever business logic you want in whatever language you want, and then you're going to make a call back to Buzzy's REST API. So it's agnostic of that. Those functions will usually live in something like a third-party server or a AWS Lambda function or DigitalOcean function or wherever that code exists. There is a guide on prompting. My basic guide is treat it like you would explain something to a 5-year-old. It generally means that you're going to break things into simple terms. Just use standard language. The AI Code Widget understands the Buzzy AI, so that's in the prompt, so it understands that. And again, we are updating these AI models and training it all the time to get better and better.
Obviously, one of the cool things is with the AI, you can get in there and within about 10 minutes to 15 minutes, get to 50 odd screens, clear them all, and start again, right? So you get to iterate, and so you get to practice with those prompts. But my suggestion would be, don't prompt it like you're giving an elevator pitch to an investor for your app. Think more, maybe Adam's 5-year-old example is funny now what I'm about to say, but think more like you've cornered someone from the IT department at the water fountain. Try and use more technical language. Focus on the functions of the app. If you don't tell the AI that you want a first name and last name field, it's not necessarily going to give you one. It might just give you a name field, for instance. If you wanted fields that are specific types of fields, you can tell it that. Give me a field called this of this type. If it's a select type field, so with options, you can do that by putting colons and commas. Really, any notation that makes sense to you as the human. The AI is amazing. It'll figure that out, and it'll make that for you. It's actually one of the things I use it the most for. One of our team leads, when we're building apps, and I'm not doing coaching, we'll be talking to the client, and I'll be pestering them to make sure you get a list of data points, because all I want to do is just copy and paste that and give it to the AI, and the AI will do something in 3 minutes that literally would take me half the day to sit there to type out and make all those data things. So practice with the AI, but yeah, definitely talk to it in a way that is a bit more technical. It'll give you slightly better results, but it's iterative, and it takes only minutes to do, so you can scrap and then start again. Just have a play.
And I think the other important thing is that you are the human in the loop, or someone in your team is going to be the human, or the humans in the loop. I kind of call it arguments with Siri. Like, I often use Siri like while I'm driving to make a call, and I say, call XYZ, and they say I'm calling ABC. And I go, no, call XYZ, and you kind of say I'm calling ABC. Sometimes conversationally, things are hard to change when you're talking to an AI. And the cool thing over here is that we generate this Figma file that you can just come in and drag and move something over, or go in and change the data model. So don't kind of go, like, if the prompt is not working and you're bashing your head against the wall, you can come in and just change it manually just in the plugin. So you don't have to sort of throw away everything and start from scratch all of the time. One thing I will say is, once you start changing things in that, then you probably don't want to go to the AI and start everything from scratch. We'll try and keep the two in sync, but again, at some point in time, it's not going to do as well as where you've kind of taken it as an intelligent human and gone forward. In terms of behind the scenes, Buzzy doesn't use the AI to generate code. What we create is an app definition which describes everything from the brief of the application, its data model, its functionality, how it looks, how it feels, how it interacts with the user, its security, everything. And that's given to the Buzzy engine, which has and generates the code on the fly. So you don't have to maintain or create that code. And if we find a bug in it, we fix that. So there's tens of thousands of lines of code over there. And we don't want to hand that over to your team, because it's very difficult for you to be able to maintain that and keep it up to date. The coding layer that you're going to need a developer to come in and do. So the first thing is you want somebody who can prompt it, and developers are good. They're people who can create good prompts and help you create good data models. So they should be able to get you to that point and help you get up the mountain. Using that analogy from before. Then to come in and code the the various bits. There's the formula language, which is JSONata. It's a very simple formula language. It's open source. Again, there's some very simple stuff. You can write complex functions and things. So you need a coder who can, generally I look for somebody who's a good coder. They should be able to read the manual and just put stuff in. There's the extension point of the HTML code widgets. Again, it's standard HTML and React.js. Like you can write it in standard HTML or whatever other, again, it's a sandbox iframe. So you can do all sorts of stuff in there. But again, you just want somebody who's got good coding skills for that. And then for the server side's extension points, they can write that in whatever language they need. So it does depend on what the application that you're building and what sort of functionality you require. So I definitely recommend booking one of the coaching sessions with Andrew, or going to the Buzzy marketplace. So marketplace.buzzy.buzz, and putting a project together and finding one of the skilled Buzzy people if you're stuck and you want to find somebody to do that, to help you along that path. So again, this is a change in the way people develop apps. It's going to be faster, more cost effective, and you're going to be able to do more with less. So bringing in a current developer who just goes, I want to touch every single bit of code from start to finish, that's not going to apply over here. And again, you're going to get a whole ton of benefits from that. If it is something that you want to own every single line of code and be responsible and maintain that going forward, Buzzy might not be the right tool for you. So again, start off with it. It doesn't cost you much. See where you get to, and bring that new way of looking at things where you're going to be a co-pilot to drive it, and you're going to bring in experts to put the custom bits in to accelerate you to that top of the mountain and get you there as fast and cost effectively as possible. You can just keep tweaking the Figma file and the configuration settings either in the Buzzy workspace or in the Figma file, and just iterating and iterating and iterating. So that was what Andrew mentioned before, is like the feature that he loves is the update button. You just keep hitting update, and we saw that when I came in and I did that, I think I made one change and I hit the update button and I said just update it for the screen. So you can iterate as much as you want, using the Buzzy plugin or the workspace to get what you want. So again, it's not just a one size, you get one shot at it. You're going to use the AI to get you to that first point, and then you're going to customize, and you can just keep iterating and iterating. I think, look, there's like our background is enterprise, where we get used to give the Docker images, and we still have that on our pricing sheet. And yeah, happy to take that offline with you in terms of things like code reviews and stuff like that.
But yeah, that was all the question for today. We come to the end of this Buzzy webinar. Thank you all for being part of it and also staying for all the questions. We know we got over time, but we're just so excited to share this with you. If you are not already, make sure to follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. Keep up to date with all the Buzzy news and recent updates as well. We'll be announcing the next Buzzy webinar very soon, so also keep an eye on your inbox and on our socials. So again, big thank you to incredible guest speakers for today for their amazing presentations. If you'd like to connect with Adam or Andrew or the Buzzy team, here's our contact information. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, again, thank you very much to everyone for joining us today. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sia. Cheers.